Senator Blair, thank you for your time. One of our opening questions, how has COVID in this closed capital impacted the session and the people's participation in the Senate process? Do you think you've been able to get the people involved?
Oh yes, the people are very involved. You get thousands of emails a day. That hasn't changed. Access to the Capitol, sure, there's been a few less people in the building, but those that have wanted to come in or have been able to make appointments. On the Senate side, look, we're set up for video. You might be able to see behind me that Zoom conferences, Teams conferences, all that is available. And then in our committee rooms and the floor, we've been doing this for years since the Republicans actually took over. We've got camera systems in where we're able to communicate with the public and archive. And so it's interesting actually in committee meetings, you can come in on a Teams meeting and be able to testify both directions for the committee. So nothing has really changed except for the amount of people that have been in the Capitol. Otherwise, it's business as usual.
Okay. Staying on that COVID theme, Senate Bill 277, which started out as the COVID Immunity Act and ended up as the COVID Jobs Protection Act, was one of the first bills to complete legislation. Why was that important to get that out, and are you happy with the final version?
Well, we don't need to, we're trying to attract business into this state so that we can have jobs for our folks. But it's a balancing act on that. We want to be able to protect our citizens, but we also want to be able to make it so that you don't have trial lawyers out here and they seem to leap at the first sign of blood in the water to where they can sue. And they go after where the money's at, where the people that are insured. I'm proud to say that we've got the strongest COVID liability bill out here, and it's law now in the country. And so we believe it was necessary to be able to, we just don't need people getting sued, and it's frivolous suits for that matter. You can't tell where you got COVID at, and that bill or law now, it was set up so that if somebody intentionally did it, then you are able to be sued, but otherwise, no.
Another bill that is moving, has completed legislation, is Senate Bill 295, Economic Development Loans. And it was requested by the governor, but included in that is the amount of money that can be loaned for broadband deployment, which has been one of your big issues. How will that bill help West Virginia?
Oh, it's going to make it so that we can have a competitive workforce. When we're getting the fiber on the poles in the state of West Virginia, one of the things that we've got concerns about is competition. We need to be able to have as many people working on getting the fiber and the poles as possible. And if you've got a diminished pool of people that are capable of doing this, then what happens is that the price goes up to get the job done. If we're going to be using taxpayer dollars in any way, we want to make sure that we're getting as much bang for the buck as we possibly can. In this case, as much fiber on the poles as we possibly can. Being able to, you had to have letters of credit on the RDOF money. And this was able to help have a larger pool of people that will be competing for that, in the same way for the subcontractors.
Very good. And there have been several bills addressing professional licensings and requirements. What's the goal with those bills, Senator?
That more people moving to the state of West Virginia. Look, I'm a master electrician and a master plumber. And what it is that, say for instance, we have a shortage of electricians in the state of West Virginia. Well, if somebody from Idaho wanted to take a job in West Virginia and move here, they don't have to move here first and then go through the process. And we have, it's a form of reciprocity. And it makes it so that if they were duly licensed in Idaho, then when you come to West Virginia, the fire marshal in this case would look at Idaho's licensure, and if it was acceptable or comparable to West Virginia's, then they would be approved and be licensed in our state. Now, gets a little bit more interesting. They haven't moved yet. Remember that. They haven't moved yet. So you're able to work a deal out with the employer and the employee to come to the state of West Virginia. But let's say that that doesn't happen. The fire marshal's office can actually rescind that license when they don't move here. So this is about growing the population in the state of West Virginia, getting the workforce that we need in the state of West Virginia. And we've got businesses coming here. The economic development is going better than it's ever went. And a lot of it's got to do with the layering effect of all the past legislation that we've done. And it's really starting to bear fruit. And if we get to the personal income tax, we're going to have a lot of people wanting to move to the state. And it's going to be a wonderful thing.
Okay, speaking of economic development, there was a House bill that went through, but HB 2019 elevated economic development and tourism to a cabinet post. It's through the process and signed by the governor. Why was that change necessary?
Well, it brings us in line with other states, and many other states have them at cabinet level positions. The governor wanted them as cabinet level positions, and frankly, so did I. It demonstrates to the rest of not just the nation, but the world, that tourism and economic development is vital in the state of West Virginia. But when they go out and do trade shows, and yes, there's trade shows for the state of West Virginia where we go and set up in New York or LA or somewhere else in the world for that matter, that people come up and they want to be able to, they're confused when we don't have a secretary for those two given positions. This solves that problem, and it didn't cost the state an additional $1.
What are as we have a couple weeks left in this session, what are the key pieces of legislation you think need to move in the final weeks?
Well, I'm about productivity. I'm not going to talk about any key pieces. Every member has legislation out here that they'd like to see moving. I'm not an expert on any of them to a greater degree. I count on my committee chairs to be able to get that done. But all legislation is important. Again, one single thing doesn't solve the problem, but the host of what we do here does, and we've been getting there. I've got a list right here of the bills that are our priority bills, and for this point in the session, I think that we've got 15 of them done. There was a total of 30 of them when we started out. Those are priority pieces of legislation, and it deals with everything from COVID to education to taxes, you name it. It's on there trying to move our state forward. So,
On a productivity or in your own opinion, how do you grade the session? Any closing thoughts on today's interview?
it's been a really good session, but it's hard for me to answer that question in its entirety. Here's the reason why. I've never been Senate President before. I've never sat at this desk. I've sat on the other side of it, coming in and saying, hey, we need to do this and we need to do that. If I was on the production line. Now, not so much so. I'm in charge of making sure the production line moves through and we get the things done for the people West Virginia need to get done. Now, it's going better than I anticipated. And other people are telling me that, and I take that with a grain of salt because I've watched over the years where everybody comes in and tells the Senate President, oh, things are going great. Things are going great. I don't buy that. But from my standpoint on the goals that we set out to begin with, we are moving along very well on getting the work for the people that we believe that was necessary to do. Now I'll go to my closing statement. Excuse me. Our goal is to make it so the average West Virginian is making more money. They are, in the last 6 years, the average West Virginian's making $5,216 more a year than what they were just 6 years ago, 6 short years ago. Now, we need to be able to get people moving here. We're going to lose another congressman next year. And if you want to have a vibrant economy, you've got to have workforce participation rates that are above 50%. You have to be able to have people wanting to buy property in the state of West Virginia. And with COVID, we're seeing that. In the Eastern Panhandle, where I'm from, we have growth. What I want to see is not the growth in those 3 counties, but we have 52 other counties that desperately need the growth so that you can put a demand on the workforces. The wages will go up higher. You won't have declining in student enrollment in the public education systems. You'll have more students in the education system. Property values will go up. The more people that are wanting to purchase a property, the more the property values go up. It's a problem solver across the board. And then we've also had a reduction in the amount of people that are on public assistance. More people are getting back to work in this state. When you put all those things in place, then what happens is that you have businesses that will want to locate here also. And they've been exiting the state for decades. So it's a matter of turning the state around. And if you don't think this is possible, I'll close with this. And that is that there's a term in industry, it's called disruptor. And being a disruptor, this phone here, the iPhone, was a disruptor. And if everybody remembers right, Microsoft had to give a loan to Apple because they were down and out. And well, West Virginia, you can sort of equate that to that. And the reason for it is that we're been ranked 49th and 50th in a lot of categories. But we can become a disruptor in the rest of this nation and change how things are done and literally become the Apple of states, which has the largest cash reserves next to Exxon, and it may be more than Exxon now. This state can do just that by having all types of energy, opportunities to work. There's not a more beautiful state than this one. And talk about carbon capture, you see it whenever you walk out the door because there's trees. Try seeing that in many other states. We know what it looks like when you fly over top of them. It's just flat. This is the state that where people are going to want to come to. It's a big opportunity for us, and I applaud the governor for taking the initiative on the personal income tax. And as it works its way through the legislative process, I do believe that we're going to get a piece of legislation that is going to change it. And if we change the personal income tax and make it so that eventually, sooner than later, we hope that we have it totally eliminated, people are going to be flocking to this state. And it is remote working. That's another one of our bills. With COVID, the whole dynamic has changed in this country. We're a small state. We should be a nimble state. We're behaving now like we are a nimble state, and it is going to pay dividends for decades for our people in the state of West Virginia.
Thank you, Senator.